They share our same enemy and they get it. However, at this point, I want to make some special notice here of an announcement that came from the South African Council of Churches in an official letter on February the 26th, in where they endorsed the Israel Apartheid Week and boycott against Israel. When the South African Council of Churches turned Palestinians into a Jesus figure and Israel into an antichrist, as they did in their letter that went out to all churches, it was the 24th of February. That's when they have crossed all red lines, from criticism of Israel to downright delegitimization, demonization, and anti-Semitism. They said they want to raise awareness about Israel's apartheid policies towards Palestinians and non-Jews and mobilize support for the BDS movement against Israel. That's their language. They want to bring Palestine to God, their Father, in a collective prayer and worship liturgy from their national office. The Christian church in South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, has been hijacked by anti-Israel abusers. They are against peace. They are against the two-state solution. May I, with a typical Jewish chutzpah, quote Jesus to the South African Council of Churches, and any Christians in here can back me up. About 2,000 years ago, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee in Israel, Jesus said to the assembled Jews over there, and I quote, "Blessed are you when they revile and persecute you, and say all kinds of evil against you, falsely for my sake." I address this to the South African Council of Churches. This is precisely what you're doing today. And let me quote from our Bible, the Jewish Bible, where God said, "I will bless those that bless you, and I will curse those that curse you." The Christian Zionists know what I mean. The South African Council of Churches, in their letter, question what sort of regime, their word, Israel is. So let me tell them. Israel is the regime to which tens of thousands of Christian and Muslim Sudanese walked to get away from the genocide in Sudan. They walked for days over hundreds of miles of enemy territory, crossing Egypt and Sinai, where many of them were robbed, raped, and murdered, to make it to the one sanctuary in the area they know they would be protected, and that was the racist state of Israel. They didn't make it down to South Africa, and I didn't hear anything from the South African Council of Churches that reached out to their Christian brethren in Sudan. Israel did. Israel was the nation, the first nation, to recognize the independence of South Sudan, the new Christian nation in Africa. Where was Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the South African Council of Churches then? Remarkably silent. They didn't have a week of events on campuses in aid of their fellow Christian co-religionists who have been slaughtered in Egypt, in the Sudan and other places. They save that venom only for Israel, the Jewish state. Now, if you want to know also what a racist or radical regime Israel is, I want to remind you that Israel was the one nation that flew Hercules jets one night to Ethiopia, war-torn Ethiopia, and in one night airlifted 14,000 Ethiopians to safety and citizenship in the state of Israel. That's what sort of regime we are. Israel is the regime that flew halfway around the world to earthquake-stricken Haiti and was the first nation to set up field hospitals and everything to help the Haitian people there. That's what a racist state we are. Israel is the regime, the only regime in the area where people of all faiths have freedom of religion. Israel is the regime where its minorities, including Christians and Arabs, can reach the highest political, judicial, cultural positions in the land. It's a regime where an Arab can send, and did, a Jewish president of the state of Israel to jail. I would have thought Israel, therefore, is an example to the world, and not one to be derogated on a ridiculous Israel Apartheid week. Let me tell you something else as well with regard to the Christians. When Israel controlled Bethlehem, the Christian population in Bethlehem was over 80%. With Bethlehem now under Palestinian occupation, it is below 20%. And they try blaming that on the Israelis as well. Jerusalem. According to all polls, the vast majority of Arabs living in Jerusalem choose to be Israeli rather than Palestinian. They know the difference. South African Council of Churches apparently doesn't. Christians for Palestine, give me a break. If you're a Christian in Palestine, you move to Israel. I tell this also to the South African Council of Churches. If we surrender Jerusalem, as they and the BDS movement insist that we should, let me tell you in real estate terms what they're talking about. The Temple Mount, the Western Wall, the Jewish Quarter in the Old City, the Horva Synagogue that was rebuilt after the Jordanians destroyed it, David's Tomb, the Rockefeller Museum, Hadassah Hospital, and the Hebrew University. So when Hamas takes over the Palestinian Authority, we can expect, I suppose, to see the Hebrew University renamed into the Islamic University. But that's not all. It also includes, for my Christian friends and the South African Council of Churches, the Mount of Olives, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Garden Tomb. Now I ask you, and I ask them as well, who do you really prefer to be the guardians of these holy places? Israel or Hamas? South African Council of Churches, get real. Now, I don't believe that these people represent the rank and file of Christians here in South Africa or their local pastors. They know the truth of the Bible, and they're with us. You can't convince these people, but the Christians here in South Africa can. And it's time for you to recruit these people to be proactive and take a stand for Israel, because it's the right side of justice. The Israel-Arab conflict has been positioned as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In the battle for the hearts and minds of public opinion, Israel is not yet on the battlefield. It's a war being fought by the Arabs, the Palestinians, the Islamists, and the far-left radicals who have captured so many people who should be in Israel's camp. The aim of Israel's enemies is ultimately the annihilation of the Jewish state. Israel reclaiming the narrative is a prosecution. In it, I accuse the Palestinians of terrorism, incitement to hatred and violence, and yes, anti-Semitism. I accuse them and their helpers of fraud, lies, and hypocrisy. My evidence is based on their words, their deeds, and their declared agenda for what they want to do against my country. I accuse them and their helpers of being the enemies of peace. Israel reclaiming the narrative must be read by anybody who cares about peace and justice for Israel. So to summarize, anyone who says that Israel is not conditioned for a peaceful two-state solution either doesn't understand Israeli society or more likely knows the truth and is lying to cover up for Palestinian bad faith. Those who say that the Palestinians are ready to accept a permanent peace with Israel are lying or simply misguided. Show me the evidence. The bottom line is that Israel cannot carry the peace burden on its own. The bottom line is that Israel cannot be more responsible for the Palestinians than the Palestinians themselves. And until the Palestinians get real, then Israel should stand firm. And for that, we need your backing and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. Are there any questions?